In 2008, an 18-year-old woman named Marie sat across from two police detectives, recounting the worst night of her life. She said a man had broken into her apartment, tied her up, gagged her, raped her for hours. Terrified and trembling, she told them everything she could remember. But instead of protection, Marie was met with suspicion. The detectives pointed out tiny inconsistencies. Why didn't she remember every detail perfectly? Why wasn't her story word for word the same every time she told it? They pressured her to recant, to admit she lied, until finally exhausted, broken, and alone, Marie said what they wanted to hear. She withdrew her statement. She was charged with filing a false report, forced to apologize publicly. Labeled a liar by her friends, her community, the world, the system she trusted turned on her like a knife in the back. Meanwhile, the real predator walked free, and he didn't stop. Hundreds of miles away in Colorado, two women, detectives Stacey Galbraith and Edna Hendershot, were piecing together a different puzzle. Victims from different towns were coming forward with stories that were eerily similar. A man slipping into their homes like a ghost, binding them, terrorizing them, disappearing into the night without leaving a trace. Galbraith and Hendershot did what others failed to do. They listened. They noticed the details others brushed aside, the strange knots in the bindings, the way he carefully took keepsakes from the homes. They didn't dismiss inconsistencies, they understood them. They treated trauma as evidence, not an inconvenience. They worked together, connecting dots no one else had seen. This wasn't random violence, it was methodical. A predator perfecting his hunt. Using DNA, forensic evidence, and survivor testimonies, they closed in on a suspect, Mark O'Leary, a former soldier with a clean record and a dark, hidden life. When police raided his home, they made a sickening discovery. Hundreds of photographs, images of women bound and gagged, souvenirs of suffering. Buried in the trove was the photo that shattered everything. Marie, bound in her own apartment, terrified. Proof that she had told the truth all along. Marie hadn't lied, she had survived, and then been brutalized again by the system that was supposed to protect her. Mark O'Leary was arrested and later sentenced to over 300 years in prison. But for Marie, justice had come far too late. Her name had been dragged through the mud. She had lost her friends, her confidence, her sense of safety. The apology she received from authorities couldn't erase what she had endured. Nothing could. She later sued the city of Lynnwood, Washington, settling for $150,000, a sum that could never repay what had been stolen from her. But Marie's case did something even bigger. It ripped open the conversation about how law enforcement treats victims of sexual assault. It exposed how trauma often looks messy, how memory isn't a perfect record, how disbelief and victim blaming compound the original violence. If only someone had listened the first time. If only someone had seen Marie's pain instead of picking apart her story. If only. Because while Marie was being gaslit into silence, Mark O'Leary was still hunting, still choosing his next victim, still carrying out horrors that could have been stopped. Marie's story changed the way detectives are now trained across America. It forced police departments to rethink how they interview victims, how they document trauma, how they define credibility. It also became a rallying cry for survivors everywhere. Proof that even when the world calls you a liar, the truth doesn't disappear. Today, Marie chooses to live a private life, far from the spotlight. But her bravery continues to echo. In classrooms, in courtrooms, in every survivor who finds the courage to speak even when they know they might not be believed. Because Marie's story isn't just about a predator, it's about a system that failed. A culture that demands victims be perfect witnesses, a world that still needs to do better. She wasn't the perfect victim, she was a real one. And in the end, she didn't just survive the assault. She survived being erased. Her story remains a brutal reminder. Sometimes the greatest violence isn't the crime itself, it's the way society refuses to see the wounds. Marie told the truth, and now finally the world is listening.